My name is Kyle Limin. I've been dancing all my life, is the cliche answer, but professionally for 15 years. Grew up dancing recreationally at family parties. I'm half black and half Filipino, so dance is just like in my veins. And then now I'm in academia, teaching dance for the past like 7 to 10 years.
My name is Austin Howard. I work at Temple Tattoo in Oakland, just downtown. I grew up around a lot of skateboarders and around a lot of people that were into punk music and whatnot. So being around them, that was kind of naturally what I kind of gravitated toward because they had tattoos. I always liked to draw and paint. You know, every Christmas or birthday, I would ask for like art. I was always drawing.
My name is Flo, and I am a movement artist. I am a healer. I channel, create, and design transformational healing journeys for people to move from the mind into the body. And that's the journey that I'm on right now, actually, is embodiment.
Dance is the exploration of the body and self. You learn your limits through experimentation. And yes, there are people that are more structured and methodical. But even then, if you're truly just connected to the music, or if you're lost in the sense of play that dance can be, you're gonna see what you can't do. I've been taking dance, teaching dance my entire life. So I honestly don't know a world separate of that. My community is so tied into that.
Yeah, I started with just pretty much my legs and arms, and once I kind of got a job in a tattoo shop, I started kind of going for bigger tattoos and more area coverage. So I started getting things like my stomach tattoo with a big piece, and I have a whole back piece, which took me a year to get done. And those are the types of tattoos that feel like big accomplishments. I have one on my palm, which was very painful, but I was supposed to wear glasses as a kid and I didn't, and that caused one of my nerves to not develop. So I kind of really only see out of one eye. The other one's kind of almost like peripheral vision, so I cover this eye with the one that it's the one eye. I don't know. Any tattooer that's not tattooed is a very odd thing to see. It's like a mechanic that doesn't have a car. There are different rites of passage for tattooing though. As far as becoming a tattooer, like say doing something like getting your hands or neck tattooed, it's something that way less so nowadays, but for a long time it was like you had to have a certain amount of tattoos before you could get areas that you can't cover tattooed. So there's part of that that plays into it too from the tattooer side. It's one of those things like, okay, you got a back piece already, you have your arms are covered. Like it used to be like, we're not tattooing your hands unless you have full sleeves. Where it's just like a, earn your stripes type of thing with tattooing. There's a lot of different respect elements in tattooing.
A lot of my sessions, my field, I would say, my energy field, it's a field of curiosity. It's a field of pure love. It's a field of play. It's a field of imagination, rest. And part of that play is sound making, expression in all different forms. Voice, humor, poetry, movement, music. It starts with inviting them, welcoming into the space. A space to let go, a space to ground, a space to center and cleanse. We set our intentions, we check in. Like, how are you? Like, how is your heart? But also, what are you celebrating? The conversation guides the medicine. And the medicine usually, almost always, starts with breaths, grounding breaths. And then we move into our bodies, because truly the breath is the guide to the body. The breath is the car, right? It's what transports us from the mind into the body. Invite you to move as slow as possible. So starting with your breath, inhaling in through your nose.
there is a simplification or kind of like this like hyper focus one goes into in art making, because they'll have something that motivates them or inspires them, and when you're just giving all your attention to that feeling or that moment in time, you're talking it out. You're talking yourself through your problems, through your joys, reflecting. And I think that is a very safe way to process your life's experience. I use dance as therapy, and just the way that we hold trauma physically, that's muscle memory, whether or not we are consciously thinking about it. And it's most evident when you have to switch locations, because it does take the mind and the body a moment to shift into taking in like a new environment, rehearsing on different floor, different costumes. It's all muscle memory, and it's all like sensory, because you know, there's something about stage lights or a certain costume that can pull a different energy out of a person.
Figuring out how a tattoo has to look, or if something has to be circular or a certain shape, can't go on certain parts of the body because it's not going to look like that shape. It won't hold that. Part of our job is to like steer the customer in the right direction to make sure that they're getting a good tattoo. Usually, as long as you explain it that way, people are pretty receptive. Being a tattooer is your own worst critic. Nothing is ever good enough for me. Even when I think I do a good tattoo, it's not. I don't think it's a good tattoo. You know what I mean? It's intimidating. You can't take it away. You know, it can be a daunting task for sure. I've had that happen to me where I had someone hiccuping on me. So he's making me just jolt lines. Oh, I was sweating and I was just like so worried. And he came back and none of it was there. Because those lines go from being, you know, it's a real minute change, but once they do settle and they're in there, they're just wide enough where those real subtle kind of wobbles can kind of disappear. The person's body changing is something that's inevitable. That's not something necessarily that I have, you know, we have control over. But as far as the tattoo goes, any tattooer worth their salt should be thinking about the longevity of the tattoo they're putting on as far as line weight and, you know, the way it's going to age over a certain amount of time, because they all do age.
My background and training is in public health. I really thought that I was going to be in academia. I think the institution is a physical manifestation of the values of this country. Racism, white supremacy, colonialism, cis heteropatriarchy. And that is a global impact. The violence doesn't happen in silo. Like, what I feel in my body is also collective. The pain that I feel, the intense sensations that I feel in my body, those are messages. Like I feel the collective grief, and personal and collectively, because we live in a world that's been designed and manufactured for people to be disembodied. The practice of listening to ourselves and being honest with ourselves, that's the work.
Growing up mixed race and queer, I was often told what I'm not supposed to be doing or can't be doing because I'm not something. I think the notes we get in life are the ones that we usually focus on giving out. And it's really helped me be more inclusive of other bodies and styles, because I know the upsetting feeling that it brings to be edited in such a way.
We live our lives, we embody the mind, right? We embody the frameworks that we were given, we embody the stories that we were told. For the longest time, I identified as my mother's daughter first. I identified as a child of immigrant. I identified as, right, these identities, these stories, low income, Section 8 housing, Medi-Cal. And so I'm in this place of like, what's the new story that I'm telling myself no.
What I'm really left with is making sure people feel seen. The way that I see that need in representation in dance is people telling their own stories, people showing the range of what each identity is capable and allowed to do. I see it all the more so in my teaching. I teach children, and just by simply doing a move that they have not seen before, the spark that that can create in an audience, the connection that that can make, the bond that can build with someone who maybe doesn't even look like you, but will come forward and announce something about themselves that they saw connected to you.
It's a very intimate thing, and you're trusting someone to put something on your body permanently, and they're touching you. You know, if you're not used to people touching you, or like that's a thing that bothers you, it can be, you know, people get really nervous, or sometimes it, you know, gets us nervous. Yeah, it's a very intimate thing. The biggest thing is making sure when people come in to get tattooed that you just make them feel comfortable. Being really nice to people and just making sure they feel safe and they're in, you know, a comfortable environment where anything they need can be accommodated as, you know, within reason, and that everyone here is here to have a good time. If they're getting a certain spot tattooed, I can be like, I know this spot hurts. Believe me, I know. When I was getting it done, and then, you know, that kind of helps them also. Like talking to people can really help them get through tattoos in tough areas for sure. I mean, sometimes they're really easy, you know, people's pain tolerance is different, but being able to relate to someone as far as like going through the same process helps a lot.
When I choose to come into my breath, when I choose to come into my body, when I choose to rest, we are able to access ancient systems of knowledge. It's our intuition. That's how our ancestors speak to us. That's how spirit universe speaks to us, is through our intuition. And we strengthen our intuition through rest, through our creative practices, through movement, through expression, through singing, and releasing shame. Shame is a tool of the oppressor, like releasing shame and like being in the body and feeling into the body. There's no right way, there's no one way, there's no right way to heal.
I've let a lot of people that also don't tattoo me. Like I said, once you get a lot of them, you kind of just start going for it, and you might be here late with some friends and you just let someone write their name on you. So you can have a lot of memories and a lot of experiences just through tattooing and having fun with it. And I think that's an important part of it too, is to be a little lenient and not so rigid about it all the time and kind of let loose. I always like to tell people that I wish I was like Kali, or, you know, I wish I had like 8 arms or like 4 legs, and, you know, I could just keep getting tattooed and tattooed.
I also have taught so many different body types and people with different access and abilities that I don't find it limiting. There's so many ways to tell a story. You're dancers, you're creative, you're artists. If I took away half of the paint colors, you have fingers, you're gonna do something. You're gonna create something, because that's what is at its core, is the creating, not the highest leg or the most balanced turn. My job is to help others see a more refined movement of their ideas. I try to kind of like sculpt. I try and sculpt that. It might require more rehearsals, but I don't think it ever requires more force.
We share our stories, we share our ancestral roots. We're all coming home to ourselves. Being able to tap into that wealth of wisdom, the infinite abundance, the infinite joy, right? Because underneath all that trauma is joy. Like this healing, what goes on behind the work is extending unconditional forgiveness and grace and compassion to yourself and your past selves and our caregivers, right? And all the people who have hurt us. That's my field of work is caregiving. It's creating spaces for people to feel at home in their bodies, to feel safe, to express what needs to be expressed. What a blessing it is for me to reconnect with my soul family in this lifetime, to share a vision for collective healing and liberation.
You also have to think about dancers that are limited based off of insecurities or not wanting to dance in front of an audience, or if my family members see this and they don't agree with dancing in this way. There's so much more than just the able physical body, but the limitations mentally that one puts that holds them back from moving is fascinating. I always think with like different able bodies, it's all just like how the body presents, or maybe like the pains or limitations, but the mind, the mind is its own body. The mind is its own body.
I enjoy drawing the tattoos. I enjoy using the machines. I enjoy actually doing a tattoo. As far as the job goes, the freedom of it is definitely a big piece of it. You can travel and do it. I mean, there's a lot of really positive things to tattooing and bad things, and I think that's important too. You know, sometimes you got to get in the fire, but yeah, overall, just the act of tattooing and the freedom it gives me is keeps me really happy, and I don't want to do anything else.